Welcome, everybody, to the Resident and Family Support Council. We have these meetings the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month at 3 o'clock. And for those of you that are on the call right now, if you don't get the invites directly sent to you, if you would like that to happen, you could either put that in the chat box or you could email me directly, and I'll make sure that I put my email address into the chat box before the end of the meeting so that you can email me directly to get that. I just want to, at this point, just remind everybody of the purpose of the meeting. The purpose of our meeting is to empower people with information so that people can live the lives that they need, want, and deserve in long-term care facilities in Illinois. And as a reminder, we post these, the meetings onto our YouTube channel, as well as any handouts or any presentations. We also put that onto our website at the Ombudsman website on the Department of Aging's page. I also want to make sure that I thank the Illinois Pioneer Coalition for allowing us to use their Zoom account. So thank you to the Illinois Pioneer Coalition. So today we actually have Andy Allison here joining us from Healthcare and Family Services, and he's going to be talking with us about some really exciting new legislation that got passed last April about the nursing home rate reform. And I'm really, myself personally, I'm very excited to hear this because I think it's really going to have an impact in the long-term care world and the hiring of nurses aides and trying to recruit more people into this career path so that they can continue to serve us well. Andy, would you like to go ahead and you could unmute yourself? Welcome, Andy.
Thank you so much, Lee, and for the opportunity to share in this description and really announcement in one sense today. We have worked for a long time. In my case, about 2.5 years, but in others, in the case of others, much longer than that. To see improvements made in how Medicaid pays for nursing home care, and therefore improvements in the care itself. That's the goal. And so, thank you for that opportunity. A lot of folks participated in this effort, and there's no way that I could acknowledge all of them. But needless to say, when the reforms are almost $1 billion a year, it's a state effort, and that's what I want to convey today. So thank you again. I'll go through this presentation, and I might need some help in facilitating questions. If I can, I'll answer them along the way, but otherwise towards the end, what I'd like to do is to go over a little bit the legislation that passed, but focusing on this pay scale. What is a pay scale? Some of you either working now or when you worked got paid by the hour and may have gotten a small raise. Let's say on your work anniversary each year, you might have gotten a small raise or some raise if you were promoted. That's a pay scale. And I might use various terms to refer to it. But that's what's meant here. We're going to focus on that aspect of the reforms, but I just want to go through the reforms themselves and start by asking the question: why did we focus? What led Illinois to change the way that it pays for nursing home services? And I'll just sort of recount a little bit of what we realized as this effort began, well, as I began the effort, but again, it's been many years. Illinois consistently has ranked last in nurse staffing in nursing homes. What does that mean? It means that if you line up all of the states across the country and you measure how many hours of nurse care are provided versus the number of nursing hours you would expect given the needs of residents, and you compare those two things, Illinois comes in with the lowest percentage on average across. Now, there are many nursing homes that are, that rank very well nationally, but we have too many residents in those nursing homes that rank poorly. COVID also, I don't have to tell you this, but had a devastating impact in nursing homes. We spent a great deal of time studying that. And it was a very sad but informative study. We found that the effects of COVID, the effects of low staffing, were disproportionately borne by Black and Brown residents across the state. This is an unequal deficit of staffing. It's an unequal burden that's being borne by residents across the state. Now, that's the bad news. Low quality and nursing homes that are understaffed, something that I believe, the newspapers have talked about, and that, there's been a general awareness of that. Here's the other side of that. Medicaid is very important. The state decides a great deal about nursing homes, not everything, but a lot. And I'll start with the fact that Illinois has paid about $2.7 billion a year to nursing homes for the care of about 45,000 Medicaid residents each year. And that's typically been enough for for-profit nursing homes to make money. Even those with a lot of Medicaid residents have tended to make money, some even more than others, because they had Medicaid residents. And the reason is that many were understaffed, so they were getting paid more than they were hiring staff. Now, Medicaid pays for almost 2/3 of nursing home resident days across the state, more than 60%. All of that to the staff, to the leadership of Department of Healthcare and Family Services indicated that we had a moral obligation to do something about this. It wasn't just a moral obligation because things were not going well. It was a moral obligation because we felt we could change it, because we had so much influence. And influence unspent is a moral travesty. So the reforms ultimately, I'm not going to spend time talking about the 2.5 nearly years that I focused on this and that it's taken to get to this point. I will talk about the reforms themselves. So the reforms that were adopted this spring, really just about 3 months ago, will put Illinois right at the top of a nationwide effort to pay nursing homes for the way that they perform, for the care that they provide to residents, for the staffing that they offer and consistently pay for in nursing homes for their residents. And how did we get to that point? Starting from scratch, where really none of the money that we were paying nursing homes last month was tied to performance. This month, we rank right at the top of the country. How did we get such a dramatic change? Well, first and foremost, by a commitment from the legislature and with approval from the federal government to spend on net about $465 million more per year on nursing home services this fiscal year than we did last year. That's a really big difference. One way to think about that is it's $33 more for every resident for every day in a nursing home beginning 12 days ago than before. That's a lot. That's about 20% more than we paid before. And I want to focus on, we're going to focus on staffing. I just want to say that of that $33 per Medicaid day, per day of a Medicaid funded resident in the nursing home that we pay, some of that will come from just a general increase in the rates that we pay, $7 to $16 per day. Some of that, $7 is the base increase that every nursing home in the state will get. Nursing homes that have an above average number of Medicaid residents, over 70%, they'll get another $4 per day. Downstate homes that used to get less will now get the same. All of that adds up to $7 to $16 per resident per day. And you might think of that in the past as being almost an hour's worth of CNA time. CNAs, as you know, certified nursing assistants. We're going to talk a lot about them. But the rate of pay for certified nursing assistants was going up with the pandemic. It was going to go up anyway, but it went up much faster and much farther because of COVID. But more importantly than those base rates are the performance-related payments that we're now making to nursing homes across the state. Medicaid, when I say we, I mean Medicaid, the state Medicaid program. And those range from zero, because if you don't perform, you don't get them, to as much as it's possible it could be $64 per resident per day in a few nursing homes. Well, the first thing I want to point out is that 0 to 64 is a much more important number than the 7 to 16 I just told you about. In other words, most of the money that the legislature, the governor, that the state has now committed to the Medicaid program, in addition to what it was paying before for Medicaid funded residents in nursing homes, most of that will come only if the nursing home performs well. And there are three types of payments. We'll focus on the last one. But first is a nurse staffing level incentive. And that ranges from 0 to nearly $39 per resident per day from Medicaid, based on the overall level of nurse staffing in a nursing home. Secondly, a quality program, a quality incentive based on measured outcomes for residents that can range from 0 if there's no performance to as much as $10 per resident per day. And then the one we'll focus on, which is the subsidy that we'll pay to facilities that adopt a CNA pay scale, that raise pay for CNAs. And that subsidy is worth anywhere from 0 for facilities that don't choose to adopt it or don't have Medicaid residents, up to $15 per resident per day or even more. This is a picture of what I've just described to you. It's just a pie chart, and it shows how much of the nearly $500 million a year net increase in payments to nursing homes, how much is due to the base rate increase that most homes or all homes get. That's about $10 per resident per day total. The quality incentive, which is a little over 3 on average, but it could be as much as $10 per day for some nursing homes. And then the two staffing related increases, one which is nearly $4 per day and one which is a little over 16. $20 a day is what, on average, beginning 12 days ago, we increased nursing home payments from Medicaid by $20 a day on average for staffing. And I've talked about part of that being the staffing level incentive for the nursing home as a whole, but some of it is this pay scale for CNAs. The thing about that $20 is nursing homes have to earn it, every penny of it. And I'll talk about how. Why did we focus so much on staffing? So again, in this picture, what it shows is most of the money that the legislature and governor just adopted and are now law, most of that new money is for staffing one way or the other. Why is that? Well, we found that understaffing in Illinois nursing homes was mainly due to the hiring of too few CNAs. There are more than one kind of nurse in a nursing home, you all know that, but it's the CNAs, the real backbone of care in a nursing home, that in comparison to other states, Illinois fell furthest behind. Now, here's something else that we learned in our, as we looked at the data, and it's that nursing facilities in Illinois employ about half of all CNAs. And secondly, that of the nursing home CNAs, Medicaid, as you have already seen, we're paying for the state is paying for over half of them. What that means is that Illinois Medicaid was in a position to change really the pay for all CNAs by using its leverage in the nursing home market. That's very important because the pandemic has led to a shortage in the number of CNAs that are actually working. We don't just need to hire more of the CNAs that are out there. We need more CNAs in general. We need to win in this battle against Amazon and other employers. And that means making the profession of CNAs a sustainable job, one that high schoolers, for example, will aspire to, train for, and become, and then remain. So HFS, the Department of Healthcare and Family Services, and we run the Medicaid program in the state, took it as our moral obligation, because we were in a unique position to do so, to propose to use that buying power of CNA services to coordinate a rapid and permanent rise in pay. First, to increase pay for CNAs in general, but to do that by rewarding CNAs with experience. Because this is what we also knew. The real threat to nursing home staffing wasn't that fewer high schoolers would become CNAs, at least not in the short term. In the short term, it was that the mature CNAs who'd been out in the workforce a while would go do something else. That was the real risk, and that's what we're trying to turn around. We need them. So I want to spend just a second talking about the new staffing level incentive payments, because they go hand in glove with the CNA pay scale. So just to be clear, or try to be clear, and for most people, it takes more than one listen to get this. The biggest single piece, and I'll go back to that pie chart, the biggest reform that we just implemented 12 days ago was a staffing level incentive. That staffing level incentive compares nurse staffing levels overall in a nursing home over the course of, well, we do it 3 months at a time. We compare those staffing levels. How many hours were provided? How many residents were there? To the need-based staffing targets that the federal government both established and now measures and monitors, which means that if the needs of particular nursing homes residents are greater, that target goes up. And so we're every month, every quarter, going to be comparing how many hours are provided versus how many hours should there really be. And we're going to be using data that the nursing homes submit directly to the federal government and that the federal government publishes online. And I believe may now begin even auditing. And it's payroll data. It's effectively, without the dollars, it's the payroll. It's the literal hours worked by each person by name. And that's submitted to the federal government. It's going to be pretty hard for nursing homes to get around this measurement process. So that's the incentive payments that we're going to make, and the incentive, this is not a discussion about them. I just want to emphasize this is a lot of money. This is $350 million a year that will go to nursing homes if and only if they staff reasonably well. And it also means that the more they staff, the more we will pay them. In fact, for those nursing homes that are mostly or all Medicaid funded, where all the residents are on Medicaid, we will just about pay dollar for dollar, almost, for the new CNAs that a that a nursing home would hire. In other words, we'll increase your incentive if you staff up. And that's apart from what I'm just about to describe to you. But here's the focus of our discussion today. In homes that choose to participate, Medicaid is now going to pay its share of hourly rate increases to CNAs. Now, those hourly rate increases have to meet certain criteria. We're going to talk about that. That's actually most of the rest of my presentation is talking about those criteria and how much those increases might be. In a nursing home where 90% of the residents are funded by Medicaid, Medicaid is going to pay 90% of the hourly wage increase that CNAs get each year because of their experience or because they get a promotion. Now, nursing homes don't have to implement this, but we believe there'll be a lot of pressure on them to do so. Because of course, the Medicaid funded homes, the nursing homes where many of the residents are on Medicaid, can almost implement this pay scale for free. Almost. And that's going to make it very hard for them not to, because the CNAs can go work somewhere else if they want. So we've put a pretty, I said it before, Medicaid HFS chose to, as a moral obligation, use its purchasing leverage to implement this pay scale to change the way that effectively all CNAs are paid. We do expect that this will have a cascading impact on all the pay of all CNAs. If homes implement both types of pay scale, that is, they pay more for each year of experience and they pay more for having been promoted, the CNAs who qualify for both of those, they get both of those. They add up. Now I'll skip to the end a little bit and give you a preview. When we started this exercise, I looked at the US Government Bureau of Labor Statistics information on average wages for CNAs in Illinois. That we actually published that in a report last year, but it was in the neighborhood of $14 an hour, I'll just say. Well, a lot of those CNAs have at least 6 years of experience. If they also were a scheduler or had some promotable role as a practicing CNA, they could get as much as an $8 an hour increase from this pay scale. When we started, the pay scale wage increase was worth at least 50% of the going wage for CNAs. This isn't a little pay scale, it's enormous. Now, in the meantime, because of COVID and the pandemic and the labor shortage in the country, the wages of CNAs has gone up. It's no longer going to be a 50% increase, but it's still going to be very significant. And we can talk more about that if there are questions, but we think this is a very healthy change in the way that CNAs would get paid. In particular, this money would go to CNAs that are employees of the nursing home, not employees of a temporary staffing agency. This is a pay scale for employees. And we think that that provides a really substantial advantage for both nursing homes and CNAs to go back to permanent employment through the facility and not to rely on nurse staffing agencies, which we have heard from many owners and across the country has become a real problem because it leads to turnover. And you don't know your CNA anymore because they go from one place to another. We want to reverse that. I don't know that we have CNAs listening today. It's important this one detail is important though. When we talk about paying for another year's experience, we mean to reward CNAs for their full work history, not just their work history in the facility they currently work. This isn't meant to create difficulty. If you know the song from the Eagles, the Hotel California, you can come in, but you can never check out. Well, we don't want to create that kind of limitation on a CNA and where they can work. And we don't want them to be stuck in a nursing home where they don't want to work, but they have to stay, because if they left, they'd have to start over on this pay scale. That's not how it works. We're going to count their full work history. They're free to move around. The second thing is that this counts work history from other states. This might be important, for example, in the Chicagoland area, where a CNA might cross the state line and work somewhere else. And all told, we think this will be about $80 million a year. It could be more. It could end up being more than that. So let me give you a picture of what this might mean. Just some, again, a little more detail. Medicaid is going to pay nursing homes, help pay for these wage increases. And I'm going to focus first on the one that comes from years of experience, the experience pay scale. So here's the deal. Medicaid is going to pay its share of the wage increases you're looking at here for additional years of experience. So let's imagine a brand new CNA that's only been working as a CNA for less than a year. This doesn't apply to them, not yet. When they hit a year, the employer, if they want the subsidy from Medicaid, is going to have to give that CNA at least $1.50 an hour increase. Now that's $3,000 a year, FYI, if they work 2,000 hours. When they hit a 2-year threshold, they'd need to make at least $250 more than the base rate. So that's what this means over here, the wage increase versus how many years of experience you have. This is I talked about steps and grades. This is just, if you ever want a civil servant pay scale, it would be a step increase. And we'll keep adding $1 an hour in the amount that we'll subsidize the state up to 6 years. Now, that doesn't mean that facilities, nursing homes would stop rewarding workers after that 6th year. It just means that our subsidy tops out at $650. Nursing homes can choose to pay more than this for experience. What we believe to be the case is this, that before we introduce this pay scale, nursing homes that gave increases for years of experience were giving much, much smaller increases than this. 25 cents, 40 cents an hour. Not $1.50 or $1 for each additional hour. So I just want to emphasize, these wage increases are substantially larger than we knew existed in the market for CNA labor before this. So the second type of pay scale that we're paying for is for promotions. Now, what does a promotion mean? It means you're still a CNA, you still have CNA duties, you're still providing care to residents, but you have an additional role, you have additional training. And so in order to to create more diversity in experience levels and to reward experience and additional training, we're also going to provide and subsidize in the same way Medicaid's share of $1.50 an hour pay raise for CNAs that have been promoted by their nursing home. And not all, it's not a promotion if everybody gets it. And so we'll pay for as many as 15% of a CNA of a facility's workforce at a promoted level. A facility, a nursing home could choose to pay more than $1.50. We'll just subsidize up to the $1.50. And we worked with the Department of Public Health, who regulates the profession of CNAs, and asked them for promotable roles that they suggested and that we might suggest to nursing homes. And this was the list. It's things like a CNA 2, which the Department of Public Health created, along with an advanced nurse aid training program. Trainers or mentors, scheduling captains, dementia or behavioral health or geriatric or infection control specialists, those that have experience and some training and focus on a particular type of resident. CPR educators, activity specialists. We're also allowing nursing homes to identify their own promotable role, all with the limitation that they can identify as many as 15% of the CNA workforce as having a promotable role. And again, that $1.50 an hour would add, we figured that most of those that get a promotion would also have at least a year of experience. So the $1.50 is going to be added to whatever they're earning because of their, in addition to the base salary, because of their experience. I don't, know if you all are concerned or interested, but a big issue in the legislature and at the department and in those that sort of have been concerned about the nursing home industry over the years is accuracy and enforcement and oversight. And so there's some things I want to point out about how we are implementing this new pay scale. The legislature in the statute intended that these subsidies be directly incorporated into increased compensation for CNAs. So number one, we don't want these pay scales to be somehow manipulated or we don't want to be tricked into somehow, for example, a nursing home could say, oh, well, our base pay is just $10 an hour. And we'll just add all these numbers to that. We know that they pay more than $10 to even new CNAs. And that's why this language is in there, that we don't want to see the base pay for, inexperienced new CNAs to go down just to fund these increases. We want the increases to be real and to lead to additional pay versus what CNAs get now. But more than that, also, we want to make sure that the CNAs actually get the raise. So number one, and you'll see an example of this, nursing homes have to post their pay scale in an employee common area. We feel like the employees themselves and CNAs will quickly enough tell us if a nursing home is getting the funding and financing for a CNA pay scale, but they're not paid that way. We are asking, and they've already begun to do this, nursing homes certify to us that they are paying on this pay scale. We're asking them every 3 months to give us payroll information. Now, they already submit that to the federal government, which we then use, but we're also asking them to tell us, with the CNA's help, how many years of experience does each CNA have? Which CNAs are in a promotable role? We're going to ask that of each nursing home every quarter, every 3 months. We've obtained the workforce registry for CNAs from the Department of Public Health. That, by the way, was 400,000 individual records, more than one record per CNA. And we have that information to use as a point of comparison to avoid, people telling us that they have more experience than they really do. So here I wanted to just finish with an example or two. And let me give you a simple example of what this is intended to be is in the blue here, although it's only an example, how a nursing home might actually post, on a piece of paper, its pay scale in the break room or in the, in a common area for employees. So we're expecting that nursing home employees in a participating, that CNAs can actually see, a piece of paper that looks, something like this anyway. And on that piece of paper would say, look, here's the new pay scale. Here's our hourly wage to start with. In this case, I've selected $16. I don't know how many nursing homes pay $16 to brand new CNAs, but my belief is some do right now, even though they didn't before the pandemic. And in this nursing home, they've chosen to implement the minimum pay scale, which is another $1.50 for the first year. So they go up to $17.50 after they're there a year. But if they also got promoted, they'd get another $1.50. So you go over here to this column and they'd make $19 an hour. So this is the kind of pay scale that I saw as a civil servant when I first started working in, actually at the federal government level. I guess that's 30 years ago. Something else to point out here is that this nursing home has said, look, here are the promoted roles that we have in our nursing home. We have a scheduling captain for CNAs. We have infection control specialist, and we have geriatric specialist. I just randomly chose those. There's no importance in them in the example. And those are the roles that get the extra $1.50 an hour. I'll give you a different example. Now, remember, in this case, this nursing home paid $16 as kind of the starting or base wage. In this example, I've just changed it. This nursing home, this is the second example, pays $17 starting wage. So to that, you have to add another $1.50 when a CNA gets to a year's experience. And if they are also promoted, they get $20 an hour. Whereas if the opening pay, as in the previous example, had been 16, that same worker would just get $19 an hour. And in this case, the pay scale ranges from 17 all the way up to 25. Now, could a nursing home choose to pay more than $25 or add to this pay scale additional pay for performance? Yes, they could. And they don't have to show it here, but they do have to show what they pay for experience and for the promotion. And this base pay, in this case, it's $17. That has to be real. It can't be fake. This has to be a real pay scale that an employee could compare to their own paycheck and actually see how it relates. And by the way, the nursing homes are telling us what their pay scale is. Here's another example. And in this third example, the nursing home has chosen not to promote, not to implement the pay scale for promotions, but only for experience. And so in this case, it's this, this nursing home, they're all just made up examples. But in this made up example, the base pay is still $17 an hour, and it goes up $1.50 for the first year, then another $1 all the way up to $23.50. And just to remind you, at $23.50 an hour, Medicaid is paying its share of $6.50, which is the difference between the base wage and that 6-year experience level. So let's imagine that in this nursing home, 50% of its residents were Medicaid. In that case, Medicaid is going to pay 50% of $6.50, which is the 6-year wage increment for experience. We're going to pay $3.25 for every hour of CNA care provided by a CNA that has 6 or more years of experience in that facility. If it's 100% Medicaid home, it's hard to get 100, but if it was, we'd pay all $6.50. So that is the presentation. We have a link here. This is going to be made available. This presentation is going to be made available. And on the last page, which is what you're looking at, this underline here is a link, and it'll take you to our nursing home payment update page, which is on the internet. And on that page are links to oh, I guess my internet's not good enough. Yeah, there it is. And on that page, this is the page it goes to, is the nursing home payment. This is really the reform page. And down at the bottom, you start getting details on implementation. Anyway, we can help you navigate that, but just wanted to show you that that we're putting a lot of information online. So I will stop. That's probably more time than I should have taken, and take questions. And Lee, I don't know how you want how we should do this.
Well, many times if people want to put their questions in the chat, they can go ahead and do it that way. Or if someone has a more complicated question, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you could go ahead and do that as well. Stephen Maxwell is our moderator for our questions. Do we have any questions in there currently, Stephen?
Yeah, but first I was wondering if you could put the link that you were talking about into the chat box so everybody has that. I was trying to find it and it was taking me a little bit of time.
Yep.
And then, so the question that we have is that all of this sounds like great and much needed reforms for nursing homes with Medicaid residents. How do we get something similar for the for-profit long-term care facilities? And this is, just to answer that real quickly, this is going to cover homes that are for-profit with Medicaid residents. There's a lot of confusion, I think, over the private-owned facilities versus your not-for-profit facilities. There's a lot of confusion over those terms.
Mm-hmm.
And the only ones that really aren't going to be impacted are going to be your assisted livings that don't get any Medicaid funding, and your would the veterans homes be exempted from this as well?
I believe so. That's a good question. I'll have to take that back. The vet, I sometimes get tripped up on those special classifications. There's a lot of them, and the county homes as well. But at least for, I believe the county homes, it gets complicated. But you're exactly right, Stephen. Actually, the vast majority of nursing homes in the state are for-profit. The vast majority of Medicaid funded residents are in for-profit nursing homes, and they're a big target of these reforms. So they're not just included; they were part of the purpose, part of the point.
We had another question. How do you find out if a facility has or is going to implement this program?
So now that's a terrific question. Number one, ask them. Ask the CNA if they see if they've seen a piece of paper posted with the pay scale on it. They'll know. The CNAs and that care for them are going to know. So I think that's the quickest way. But over time, when that information will be available on our website. We post information on how much we pay nursing homes routinely. As we sign, the nursing homes are just now signing up for this and giving us the information we need to pay them. But once that gets worked in, there'll at least be a high level view of which nursing homes are participating. That'll take a while. So the quickest way to do it is ask your CNAs.
Andy, why wouldn't a nursing home want to participate in this? Can you give us any insight on that?
Yeah, so initially we think that there's no reason for a high Medicaid home to not participate. Because even if we're only paying 80%, we're paying 80% of a pay increase that we know many of them are already paying through temp agencies that they're using, to fill out their the hours that need to be provided. Number two, this isn't the only money that these nursing homes are getting in the reforms. We talked about that. They're getting hundreds of millions of dollars. Only 80 million of it is for this. And 350 of it is to just in general increase staffing, which we know will come by hiring CNAs. In other words, we feel like they would have spent the money anyway. This is free. It's almost, in a sense, it's almost free. So those high Medicaid homes have every incentive to participate. The very low Medicaid homes don't have as much of an incentive, but I'll paint the picture for you. They're the ones more likely to have very high staffing levels, which means that the Medicaid residents they do have, we're going to pay a lot more for them. And they're going to have to earn it back a little. We think in that case, they may not want to, but they're pretty much going to have to in order to keep their CNAs. And, I don't know how to say it nicely other than this is leverage. And some nursing homes may not like it and may be reluctant, but we think the CNA market, labor market will demand it. And here's one way I put it. When the price of oil goes up, landowners in South Dakota and Texas, some of them win big. Some of them win really big. When there's a labor shortage and a pandemic and a COVID crisis, why shouldn't CNAs win big? They should. And this is how we're going to do it for them.
It does seem like it's going to create more of a competition among nursing facilities for that recruiting of that CNA because
so that's a great question, but it's partly true. So here's what happened in the pandemic. Two things. One is that nursing homes, you saw the banners outside of them. Signing bonuses. Signing bonuses are pure competition between nursing homes for a fixed number of CNAs. The second thing that happened is that CNAs that already had tenure, how are they going to get the money that they really should earn now that they're in such great demand? That's why a lot of them went to the temp agencies. It's because the nursing homes wouldn't give them a raise. Why wouldn't they give them a raise? The nursing home owners told us the reason we haven't raised our pay scale yet is because Medicaid hasn't given us more money, right? So in one sense, we're really just enabling what was already happening in the marketplace, but without the temp agencies and without the signing bonuses, which in the long run go away, right? This is for a permanent increase. So Here's the other thing. I think a high schooler and the counselors that guide them could reasonably advise a high schooler who's thinking about becoming a CNA and sees the signing bonus. It's like, you know, a young person who wants to go in the military. They see the signing bonus, but they should be advised, you're not going to get a signing bonus 3 or 4 years from now. Like, it's just one time and you can't count on it. Well, we want to flip that script and provide permanent pay increases that counselors will tell their high schoolers, well, this won't go away. This is going to be here 3 or 4 years from now. You're going to get that $1 an hour raise even 3 or 4 years from now. That means we end up with more CNAs. So this is designed to increase the pool of CNAs, not to create competition between. We think the competition between nursing homes will be temporary while they adopt the pay scale. But the long run impact is more CNAs.
And I think that's what we really need is more CNAs, honestly. So we had a few more questions. Does this cover supportive living, and where does this leave nurses?
So supportive living, the proposal itself right now, the legislation doesn't directly incorporate supportive living. However, Medicaid's payment rates to supportive living are linked to the payment rates for nursing homes. And so supportive living is getting a big raise right now because of this reform package. And as a result, should have the money to pay their CNAs more, which we think they probably will have to because of the competition with nursing homes.
Oh, well, and then the other part was, where does this leave nurses?
Asking for more.
It does seem like this is going to give more honor and value to having that role of a CNA. You know, it always feels with any conversations I've had with CNA when they start using that word, I'm just a CNA. So it feels like this is really valuing that role of the CNAs. And I think that's something we did learn through the pandemic is these nursing facilities are lost if they do not have the staffing that they need to have. Care declines, people get sicker. It just has a huge impact. CNAs are needed and we need good quality, and tying it to years of service, it feels like that can really have a very good outcome for people not to leave that career path. Because there have been a lot of good people that I've known that have left that career path because they couldn't afford to live. They couldn't afford to live with the rate that they were getting. So it does.
This might be, oh, it's terrific. This might be a good time to point out, and I hate to talk over, but your phrase, your turn of phrase there, the role of the CNA. My dad's dissertation at the University of Michigan School of Business in 1972 was literally the role of the nurse's aide.
Huh. Wow. Wow. I would love to read that one of these days, Andy. That sounds like such a cool thing.
As with all dissertations, you might be the second person. So.
But this is, I mean, this is such a complicated thing that you've explained to us, and you did break it down very succinctly for us. So we really do appreciate that. And I know we've got some other questions out there. Stephen, do you want to ask those?
Yeah. So one comment was that assisted living, including those with dementia care, need these reforms, and I'll just address that. I think that's probably going to happen as a result of this this pay increase, because if all the nursing homes have increased pay for CNAs, then all the other facilities that aren't getting this funding are going to have to increase payments or risk losing staff. But you know, I think that's something that might have to be looked at in a few years, but not by HFS, by IDPH, depending on how the market goes. Somebody asked, I believe you said the cost to implement this program is very little. How much will it cost for a facility to implement?
So I think that I'm just trying to think of the best way to answer that question. I think that maybe the easiest way to answer that is by the amount of subsidy that's possible. So I think I characterize the amount of subsidy could be as much as $15 per resident day, or even more in a facility that was almost all Medicaid. And so that's a good indication of how much it actually costs that facility to raise pay for its CNAs, is as much as $20 per resident per day. But I think I also pointed out that the nearly $500 million rate increase that we're in total that we're implementing here applies, across the board. And it's not just, they're not just getting they're not just getting the subsidy that we're providing for the CNA pay scale increase. We're giving nursing homes in total 4 times that amount for their overall staffing levels, which we know are tied to hiring CNAs. So, and we knew that we were doing this, and we actually calculated at one point, are we actually paying some nursing homes twice for the same thing? And we factored that into our analysis because we know some nursing homes are high Medicaid, but low staffed, so they're not going to get that incentive. Others are the reverse. So it varies a lot. Some nursing homes won't get much from us directly in order to implement this, but we feel like there's no way around it. The state needed to make a bold commitment to CNAs in general, because we need more of them. And after nursing homes bore the brunt of the pandemic, that we have a moral obligation, if we can, to address them first. And if it's a competition between Amazon and CNAs and nursing homes and assisted living and supportive living, guess who we want to win? We want long-term care to win. We want CNAs to win. And this is a pretty bold stroke that no other state has taken. And if we just tipped the first domino, we want them all to fall.
And it's funny that you use Amazon as an example, because I do know a gentleman who was a CNA for years, and he left to go work for Amazon because he could make more money working for Amazon. So it's ironic that you use that as the example. So if I'm a CNA, do I have to do anything to become eligible for this, or it's just dependent upon the facility that I work at?
Well, that's a loaded question, because CNAs might have influence in their facility. But I'm not advocating. I'm not going to get between an employee and an employer. But it is the nursing home's choice to participate or not.
So since we're a resident family support council, if I'm a family member and I recognize that there is a staffing shortage, which is the reason why there's a lot of care issues for my loved ones, I could maybe potentially be that change maker and encourage the facility that my mom is at to participate in this, and maybe start rallying other family members and staff up. I know that's difficult for you probably to answer, Andy, but I mean, I'm just thinking as, a family member, a resident, these might all be things that, this is how we want to empower people to make that change. So this might be some, to be thinking along those ways as family members and residents that live in facilities. If I'm a nurse's aide and I work in a hospital currently, you mentioned that it will go across. Will I get credit for being a nurse's aide in the hospital or not?
Yes.
I go over to the skilled side.
That was a point of discussion. And I must say, we took the advice and input that we received as the bill passed, and we looked at how to implement and did make the decision with input to count that experience across different types of facilities and even out of state experience. It's the increase is meant to retain experienced CNAs and even to bring them back into that, let's bring them back from Amazon, so to speak. I don't want to disparage Amazon. I've received an Amazon package today. I don't have anything I'm not biased. I'm just saying we need to win. We watched our nursing home residents lose in the pandemic. And, I have some ladies I look after on behalf of the church. I'm just telling you, not on our watch. We want them to win. We want them back. And if they've been in CNA and then they went to do something else for a few years, we want them back. And if they worked for 10 years and they left for 2, they're going to come in at the top of that scale at $6.50 more an hour than they would have earned on entry. And it doesn't matter whether it was in the facility that they come to work for or whether it was in a hospital. We want them back.
That's great. And I think that's a great way to end it. We are at 4 o'clock right now. And so with that, Stephen, I know you're going to ask me a question. What's that question?
Can you tell us about the next meeting?
Absolutely, Stephen. He always asks me that at the end of every meeting. Our next meeting is going to be July 12th. And our topic for that is navigating your own advocacy when you live in a long-term care facility. So we want to encourage everybody. That's part of what we all do, is we really talk about how we can be better advocates for ourselves.
Lee, what day is that going to be again?
That is July 12th.
It is July 12th.
Oh, today's July 12th. So it's 2 weeks.
July
I always screw this part up. It will be July 26th. Thank you. July 26th. So thank you for that. Andy, I do want to thank you so much for taking time to meet with us today. It was really, really informative. I know I have a whole list of other questions. I could probably go on and talk to you for probably another 2 hours. So I will be staying on if anybody has any other further questions that they want to ask, and we can bring those forward to Andy if Andy has to go. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the recording right now.